Hey guys, it's Tilt. I want to talk through some of the most common questions on pricing for entrepreneurship and founders that I get. I've coached hundreds of entrepreneurs over the last few years here, and pricing and the difficulties around pricing are one of the most common questions that we usually get when we're coaching new founders. Pricing, it's challenging. It's not fun. You're never going to feel like you got it perfect. You might be years into your business and still be tinkering with this. It's always weird and awkward to ask for other people's money, especially when you're first starting out. So I want to walk through some of the best practices here and the advice that we usually give other founders. So the very first one, it's going to be uncomfortable. Pricing is uncomfortable. The fact that you feel uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just a normal part of the process. So just accept that and move on from that. Your pricing is going to feel made up when you first do it because to a certain degree it is. If it's your first time pricing a new product, you don't know what that correct number is. You might be coming in too high, you might be coming in too low, and you're really not going to know until you actually start engaging with customers, getting it out there in the market, getting that feedback, tweaking it, comparing it to other comparables in the market. So really just that first point, it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to feel made up. That's just part of the process. That's okay. So the second point I want to highlight here, it's much more likely that you are actually underpricing yourself rather than overpricing. A lot of founders struggle with this early on. There's that feeling of maybe undervaluing your own work, being a little bit anxious early on. And honestly, you might be solving a big problem. You might be saving someone $1 million. And so asking for a little bit more, making a more forward leaning or slightly aggressive ask, nothing wrong with that. But it's much, much more likely that you're coming in too low than too high. And I see that all the time with new founders. So the third point here I want to make, if your pricing's correct, at any given time, roughly 20% of customers should be grumbling but still paying. So if you make it too high, you're getting zero business. Everyone says it's too expensive. That's obviously its own problem. But if, every single time you mention that price, people go, man, you guys are cheap. The competition is triple the price. Okay, you just got some good information there. That's happened to me in the past where we realized we were coming in way lower than the competition. So, it's commonly said there's a sweet spot right in there, right around 20% of customers that are slightly grumbling and saying, hey, that's a little bit high, but I'm still willing to go ahead with that. So the fourth point that I want to make here, offering early adopter and sweetheart pricing is actually a really great strategy for onboarding early users. And the nice thing about that is it gives you fast traction. You get some users early on, which is really nice. But you also reserve the right to adjust that price at a later date without angering customers. So one of the things you can do there is, suppose you got that subscription-based approach, you can say, all right, we're doing $99 a month, but for early adopters, it's going to be $60 a month. And ultimately, that means that early adopters have an incentive. They feel like that they're getting some kind of deal out of this, but at the same time, in a long-term sense, there's an understanding that those prices will go up over time, which really feeds back nicely into that second point. It's much more likely that you're underpricing yourself rather than overpricing yourself. Now, that also leads well into our fifth point here. So, if the customer is squabbling over that specific dollar price and you're just fighting back and forth about the specific dollar amount, it's actually because you personally did not articulate the value of your offering to that customer. So that really ties into customer discovery, right? One of the very first things I did for my own company, we did the Innovate ND program in North Dakota. We also did NSF iCore in the Great Plains Hub. So two really strong customer discovery programs. And we were doing dozens and dozens of customer interviews. We actually changed our entire business model based on this, changed our pricing model based on this. So, really having that understanding of the exact problem that you're truly solving through customer discovery is going to be the best way to understand the value. Because if you understand the problem, you can articulate the value in the context of that problem. So, don't get into the price wars. Don't end up squabbling back and forth over dollars. If there is squabbling over dollars, you need to return to that value proposition itself. So, number six, a little more on that sales psychology side, understanding the need behind the need. So, think about buying a car, for example, right? We don't buy a car just to have it sit in our garage and just to stare at it all day long, right? It actually has a function. So there are multiple functions for cars, right? It might be you're getting the economy model, you need something practical, you just got to get to work, and you need something reliable that's going to be a low maintenance cost. Could be you're buying that Ferrari or Lamborghini for projecting social status, right? That's actually another use for a car is projecting social status for a lot of customers. So ultimately, understanding the need behind the need, right? Why are they actually coming to you? Why are they open to that conversation? And what is it that you're really offering them that's not just buying a thing? It's, why are they buying that thing? What emotional or, anxiety related issue is that resolving, right? Is there some internal fear about their company that you're actually helping them fix because they're buying this, right? So tapping into that human side, that emotional side, the need behind the need, that's really valuable for figuring out your pricing. So Number seven, you can price in a handful of different ways, and there are multiple ways to do this. None of them are wrong. There are three big ones I want to talk about here. So the first is loss aversion, right? The idea that I help you save $1 million. Without me, you would lose $1 million either due to inefficiency, things failing, things breaking down, right? That there's some solution I can offer you that's going to prevent that loss. That tends to make your pitches maybe a little more negative in flavor at times. You got to be cautious about that, not to come in doom and gloom and trying to scare people. But you can reasonably say, hey, if you've had a big multi-million dollar loss and I can prevent that, that's a pretty decent pitch right there, and also allows you to charge even more up to that point of whatever they lost. There's also the growth angle on this. So you could say, I free you up to make $1 million more, right? I help you be more efficient in your business. I'm a tool that makes you operate faster. Now you can double your business for the year. Now you can make $1 million that you might not have been able to make otherwise without this capability I'm here to offer you. So the third one, and this is the practical one, there's no shame in this one, but a lot of people are a little uncomfortable with this one. It's actually looking at, for you personally as a founder, if I want my startup to succeed, how much do I need to make to pay my bills, to pay my mortgage? And this is nice as a bit of a sanity check because you realize, what does it actually take to operate my business, right? It might be that you say, I've got to be able to bring in $50,000 a year or else I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay for my kids' costs for school. I'm going to have to shut down. And at the end of the day, if you shut down, I mean, if you're not making money, you're not a business, right? It's a hobby at that point if you're not actually driving revenue. So there's no shame in that third pricing model, right? Just thinking about practically, what do I need to do to keep this thing going and also to be able to grow and to scale and to hire, but what's my bare minimum operational cost here? So as an example of this, why is a wedding photographer so expensive, right? Why is a wedding photographer $3,000, right? That sounds like a lot of money. Part of it is just there are 52 weekends in a year. Most people don't want to work every single weekend of their life. And so, most people are getting married on a Saturday, occasionally Sundays, occasionally Fridays, but usually on Saturdays. So at that point, I mean, you've got 50 opportunities to make money on a yearly basis. If you're doing 50 weeks out of that 52-week year and taking 2 weeks for a vacation, maybe you're making $3,000 each time. And so multiply that by 50, and now you've got your business's income that you can possibly bring in during that time frame. Which means at that point you can say, do I need to raise my prices? Do I need to start offering Sunday and Friday weddings? At that point, do I need to bring on more staff? But it could be that you're literally limited by time, just in the number of weekends of the year, if you're not something like a scalable software, like a SaaS business, right? So at the end of the day, you can base it on the lifestyle that you want, on how much you want to bring in, the salary you have, and then actually work backwards from that and determine your pricing, and then figure out if that's something that the market is willing to pay. So the final one here, the eighth point, I would encourage you to consider testing multiple different tiers of pricing, 3 different tiers. And part of this just gets down to basic sales psychology. Without knowing you personally, I can tell you that almost guaranteed when you signed up for your internet plan, you probably picked that middle speed tier. No one wants to be the guy with a super slow internet so we can't watch Netflix. A lot of people say, I don't need to pay $150 a month for that ultra fast lightning speed internet. I don't know if I'm really going to need that. And so I'm just clicking the middle one, without knowing much about how many gigabits per second, any other variables. I'm just going to click the middle one because that seems reasonable. And I don't want to be the cheap one. I don't want to be the super expensive one. We'll just pick the middle one. About 80% of sales happen there. So if you're still unsure about pricing, you're trying to figure out what you want to do next, my recommendation there is really have 3 tiers and see which one starts selling. If your lowest tier is selling the most and the others aren't selling, maybe you're coming in a bit high, or vice versa. If the highest tier is selling, maybe you can add another tier even above that. I think especially with the rise of AI and LLMs right now, it's really easy to add in different features like that for a premium tier. So with relatively minimal effort, you can have multiple tiers of pricing for your product pretty fast and actually be in a great place for that. All right, so that concludes the briefing here on 8 different ways to start looking at pricing. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hope this was useful. Thanks, guys.